Welcome back to Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, and The Mix, powered by the Mayo Media Net here on YouTube, presented by Jock Market, the daily fantasy app where you actually make money. Download the bad boy for free. Use the promo code MMN. They're going to match that first $100 for free. If it's free, it's for me. Yes, y'all, and you don't stop. Big John, come rocking the short shot. All right, man. Did you miss me or did you miss me? Didn't really give you an option on that one. Make sure you rate, review, and subscribe to the audio-only pod. And in just a couple minutes after I've earned it, I've been up since a crack of dawn, I'm going to ask you to jam a cartoon finger right inside me. Whoop. It's John Laghezza at John Laghezza here at Mayo Media Net. Let's get down and do it. To all the new listeners, thank you so much. Welcome aboard. This show can get a bit funky at times. Strap up and strap in for the fastest show in NFL absolutely anywhere with the one-man band. We're using Run the Sims projections to come up with the highest projected players in tonight's game, Thursday night foosball. Nothing says bad football like Thursday night. It's Colts with no JT. It's the Broncos, who just kind of stink. It's a 42-point total and a lot of sloppy football on deck. Then we're going to run those same projections with a cost analysis perspective and come up with the best values. Then I've got a prop play for you that every time I check it, the juice is going against us. So maybe it is a good play. Got to get back on track. I was on A-Rob. Yikes. We are off the Rams. We are off of A-Rob 3 until they protect Stafford. You got to get away from anybody not named Cup on that one. All right, man. Enough of that. We need more of this. There we go. Up on the screen for the audio-only listeners. I'm going to walk you through it. As always, we have our top projected players for each team. Let's begin with the Colts. Pittman and Hines and Ryan all at 16, 15, 9, 15.8, respectively. We're not going to overreact to decimal points. Those are all equal. Drop down to Phillip Lindsay Cole up off the practice squad at 7 points. And my boy, who I've been tracking all year, Alec Pierce, waiting for somebody, well, hopefully him, but somebody, to take a hold of that second pass-catching slot in the Colts. Find somebody that loves you as much as the Colts love throwing to random tight ends. They are so frustrating, but hey, that kind of opens up a pathway to some profitability in these slates. Over to the Broncos, it's Russell Wilson up at 18, which makes him the highest player on the board. Sutton at that very same 16, 15.7. Dead heat with Hines, Ryan, and Pittman. Drop down to Melvin Gordon and Judy and Boone at 13, 12, and 10, respectively. They sandwich in between that bottom tier Colts, Lindsay, and Pierce. All right, let's get up into a little bit of game breakdown here and see what we can see. I love that, as the stats are rolling in. Oh, gosh, I kind of prefaced it, right? It's looking pretty ugly. Colt offense, only 14 points a game. Yikes. They run a bunch of plays, 67 per game, but only 330 yards. That's 5 yards a play. Also, near the bottom, they move really slow, 32 seconds per neutral game script per play. I'm saying 30 yards a drive. That's the bottom 8. Less than 3 minutes time of possession per drive, sub 70% drive success rate. All these things are really bad. Let's get ready to go get worse. Minus 35% rush DVOA, bottom of the board. 3.63 adjusted line yards, bottom of the board. 88 rush yards a game, bottom of the board. What's going on? Pass DVOA, not much better. Also in the red there, minus 21% pass DVOA. Remember, that's a very excellent, let's call it like an amalgamated stat, right? An overall stat, overarching stat from Football Outsiders. They do very good work. You want to be above average. That's what the OA is, over average, and being below on offense, not any good. Yes, they throw a ton of passes because they're always behind. 39 attempts, that's 25 completions. All not bad, but only 6.5 yards per attempt, 10 yards per completion. That's not going to do it. Matty Ryan throwing way too many picks. Broncos D has been excellent, allowing 17 points, 58 plays, 285 yards per game, all those in the top 5, less than 26 yards per drive, 2 minutes and 30 seconds per drive, a 63% drive success rate. Pair that up with the Colts, 68, and you got yourself a bit of an under. Broncos pass D has been kicking, minus 16% pass DVOA. They have 11 sacks, better than 8% adjusted sack rate, allowing only 20 completions a game for 170 yards, 5 per attempt, 8 yards per completion, less than a touchdown per game. Broncos D has been excellent. Broncos offense, not so good. I was one of the people who did buy into the preseason narrative, but I'm not one of the people who marries those narratives, right? That's not what you're going to get here. You will get misses. That happens. What you won't get is like stubbornness, right? That's not the stuff that we're going to be attaching ourselves to, or those narratives. You got to get away from the Broncos until they show you something. They're just not doing anything that we expected. I mean, that's it. They're not scoring less than 17 points a game. They're not running plays. That's at 62. They're not picking up yards, 335 per game. They move way too slow, 29 seconds. Overall, 32 seconds in the neutral game script. They have eaten up clock more than 3 minutes, but the drive success rate down at 66%. They're not any good. Rush DVOA, minus 20. Oh my gosh, and now without Javonte, my boy, Melvin Gordon, I think was already getting benched. If you're one of the people that expect him to step into it, I'm not even sure. I don't know what they're going to do. I wouldn't be surprised if they become one of the teams that flat out just abandon the run. Why? The Colts run D has been sick. Minus 28% run DVOA, 3.45, adjusted line yards, allowing below 90 yards per game, 3.11 running back yards per attempt. Pass defense not far behind, allowing only 207 yards per game on 31 attempts, less than 10 yards per completion, all those near the top of the board. Defense have been very tough against positions by position, except for maybe the tight ends. Broncos D, been very tough on QBs, only 11 fantasy points a game. Tough on running backs, only 18 points a game. That's total to the running back room. Same for wideouts, 24 points to the room. Tight ends have gotten them, if anyone has, 13 points a game, 5 reception, 47 yards per game average. Colts defense also been very good, but they've also gotten touched up by the tight end. I wonder if we're going to see a lot of that. Remember, I did mention Colts using those wonky tight ends. Expect more of that. Broncos, what are they going to do at the tight end? I don't know. I did like Albert O. We had the funeral. Then he played a bunch of snaps. Last week he played 1 snap. Here's a teaser for my Athletic Speculator article. You got to be looking at Greg Dulcich. I don't think he's going to play today, so I don't have any idea what we're going to get. I have no idea. I guess it's Eric Selbert, depending on his pricing. We'll get to that in the value section. So there's just the handicap for a bit. I've been trying to, not say rush through, but trying to get you through the names and the totals as fast as possible because I want to get to the handicapping. We want to get to those advanced stats that maybe not everyone has access to, maybe a new look at it. Lots of really tough matchups on offense here. I'm not expecting a lot of offense at all. In fact, we haven't seen much offense from any of these teams outside of Cortland Sutton. He looks excelente. Gotta get with him. All right, I think that'll do it for the Blues Chips section. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And if you learned something, hey, press the like button because it matters way more than it should. And if you really, really like it, press subscribe. Man, I don't know if you're watching the other stuff on the Mayo Media Net, but I personally am obsessed with this Pat Mayo show with Tim Andercost, right? Tim Anderson and his McDonald's monopoly addiction and adventure. I wish we were getting daily updates. I'd like to bet a prop on what day he collapses if he does. I'd even like to bet on what the first piece would be, right? We could break it down at the quarters of the board. We could break it down to the actual piece. Well, good luck, Tim. Although, for content's sake, I'm almost hoping he collapses just with the last few seconds that we have for the blue chips. Thinking about that narrative, people are going to be paying up for Pittman and be paying up for Sutton. Are we going to get a lot of passing? I'm not sure. Sounds pretty filthy to me. This would have been a Taylor game, probably just based on volume alone, but he is out. Does Heim step on in? He has in the past. I had to go all the way back to 2020. I think he had 17 touches, but something like 95 total yards. I think he had 8 grabs. We'll touch on that in a little bit. Very hard to back Matty Ryan, especially in a tough matchup. Over to the Broncos. I mean, Russell Wilson's just been slow. He hasn't been great at all, and we haven't even really seen much progression. Bronco pass offense, 226 yards a game. That's 7 yards an attempt, 11 yards per completion. The per completion stuff is pretty good. He's not throwing picks, which is nice, but the rest of it not any good. Denver also allowing a lot of sacks. They've allowed 12 sacks already. Colts have been getting at the QB, so I'm a bit just worried about the offenses here in general. I'll be paying 0 premiums in this game. I guarantee you that. I'll be looking to take advantage of any of those kind of big dogs that we think could maybe fall into the end zone. Boom! All right, that's our first pillar of profit. Remember, hop on over to YouTube if you are an audio-only listener, and you can kind of grab the screenshot. I think sometimes it's helpful, you know, just to see everything all at once, if you want to refer to it like a note, and, you know, if you want to see these things again without having to hear me yammer. All right, that's the ball across the 50. Let's take a deep breath, and we get this bad boy into the red zone. All right, it is time for the second segment. That's our penny stocks brought to you by Jock Market. Make sure you're downloading that app. This is the preeminent Jock Market show, and this is the preeminent segment. This is where you're going to get it. If you notice, I've been working around the clock to continue to mesh daily DFS conventional platforms with Jock Market. I know people are doing a blend, right? That Venn diagram I've mentioned myself. DFS is very, very difficult. It's a 9-team parlay. I don't recommend those as a handicapper for a reason. But that doesn't mean that you can't make any money. I've liked these winner-take-all formats because I feel like it's winner-take-all anyway. That's another story for another day. But if you notice, I was up and I scraped not only our ownership projections, I scraped the IPO pricing for Jock Market. These are beginning to get sharper and more closely reflect what we might expect, right? You see 3, 4, 5 players up at that $12 mark, right? So this is probably a true reflection, but well, as deflating as it could be, right, that we're going to have to pay up for it, it's good to know the truth, right? I've always been that kind of person, right there. Listen, just give me the truth and I'll kind of figure it out from there. All right, so again, these are not just the cheapest players on the board. Anybody could do that. We're looking to look at these things under a cost per point value lens. Last thing, value is a rate stat, right? So just because something is cheap doesn't make it good. I've had to learn this firsthand, coming from nothing, having to, keep the lights on, man. All on your own can be very, very difficult. And yeah, not paying premiums and reducing overhead is just as good as making money. All right, 2 quarterbacks are the only 2 on the board. It's Russell Wilson, projected for 18 points at the 10.4 salary, $577 cost per point. The IPO up at 14, ownership 59. Now, a lot of those things kind of check the box because there aren't a lot of players here. The quarterback touches the ball the most, and he's the leading candidate to lead the way. That being said, no, thank you. IPO, remember, top returning share on Jock Market returns $25. I have drawn a hard line at $12.50 on showdown slates. The reason being, simple math, I can't get any worse than a 2-1, especially for a player like Wilson. He's not even been good. The chance that he's the best player in this game is not 2-1. He's not the best player in the game, right? Even by a talent standpoint, Pittman could break one. If Indianapolis just sustains drives, it could be Nyheim Hines. And then if it's on the back of Ryan, if Wilson falls out of the first or second slot, he's not going to make any money. Again, profitability at the center here. Matt Ryan projected for 16 points, 9.6 salary, 607 cost per point. Pretty similar across the board as far as IPO and ownership goes. Again, I don't know who I like better here. I think it's Wilson against the Indianapolis D. So all things considered, especially with the cost per point analysis, right? That's another way this comes into play. Even though Ryan's a bit cheaper, Russell's projection puts him over the top for value analysis. So if I had to pick one, it's got to be Wilson. But if I have to pick one, the answer is neither. Then the running backs, it's Phillip Lindsay, Nyheim Hines, and Mike Boone. Phillip Lindsay has a new record on the board. Good luck beating this one, DraftKings. Projected for 7 points with the Taylor downgrade to out with a $600 salary. He has an $82 cost per point. It's a must play, right? There's no other way around it. We just can't. If we're going to do this kind of work and believe in it at all, then if we get something like this that breaks the program, then you just get with it. I don't know how much he's going to get. I don't know where the 7 points come from. They're expecting him to step right into some kind of rushing role. Well, if that's the case, then you go get him. Absolutely, in DraftKings, don't even ask a second question, but you scoot over to Jock Market, and this is the difference between the two and why we have to be so sharp. 537 IPO, that I'm not sure I can get to, because I'm not confident that he's going to get the ball, right? So showdown, if you're going to get against the field, the 35% ownership is not that high for a player that offers you that kind of salary relief. So that is a situation where I don't say you ignore ownership, but he's not at the 59 that Russell's at. He's one of the lower players. So Lindsay is a must in the showdown format. I don't know about Jock Market. I don't want to pay $537 for Phillip Lindsay. He might not play. He just got elevated. He might be a replacement back. You could see Dion and Nyheim. So again, keep your eye on Lindsay, but that's a good way to get different and capitalize on the low salary. Mike Boone, don't know what we're going to get, but I do think he's in line for the lead. He's got some juice at least. Gordon looks terrible. He's constantly fumbling the ball. That's the first thing going to get you in trouble. Mike Boone projected for 10 points at 6.2 salary. That's a 613 cost per point. Puts him in line with Matt Ryan and the other quarterbacks. It's a bit high, but it is what it is in the showdown. The thing I'm saying here is, if you don't buy the Melvin Gordon projection at 13 points, which I don't at all. Like, I think he's getting replaced. I guess he's a pop for that touchdown, but I don't have him at 13 points. I do think a few of those points go to Boone. If you turn the dial up on the points, you have to turn down the dial on the cost per point, right? Because up the expectation, the salary is stagnant. So hit Mike Boone's 658 projected IPO is a lot more tempting to me than Lindsey's 537, right? And then add on the last one, that 9% ownership could keep him from popping up. Mike Boone, another fantastic play, right? So there's a bit of the calculus and why I like to show you all this stuff. Again, rate, review, and subscribe for those audio-only listeners. I'm doing my best to walk you through it. But more importantly for this section, to get over and grab that screenshot, you really want to become familiar with the numbers. And there are two sets of them, right? So the main slate, average, mean, median, right? The numbers we're looking for are going to be totally different than the showdown slate. So just looking at the stuff here at the showdown slate, you're going to be around that $600 mark. Anybody below, you got to be considering it, especially with the opportunity to pop the top. That's just what it is. When we get down on the main slate, you start to see these cost per points drop in the 300s, some in the low 300s to the high 200s. Give you an idea of that perspective and help you understand maybe, the pricing and how these things work. Let's get into the wide out room. So again, love Lindsey on showdown. Love Hines probably is the player of the game. And if his 1178 IPO stays there, I think we can get with him for Jock market. Wanted to get with him as a blue chip type of guy. Into the wide outs, Cortland Sutton is probably the best player in this game. Projected for 16 points at 9.4, 600 cost per point, 12 IPO, 44 ownership. Really checks the box all the way across for what you think of one of the better players in the game. And if these things hold, I think you get with Sutton. If you on the indie side, it's very tough to really pick a side here. But again, something we've talked about, drawing narratives. I'm going to have to mention this at the end because I feel like such a donkey. What a fool that I really give good advice sometimes, and even I fail to follow through in it, right? We were talking about if you establish a narrative, then you should continue on it. I was going on and on and on about how Higbee for the Rams had established himself as a number 2, but I allowed the low rec prop for A-Rob to lure me in. That's silly, right? I broke congruency. If you drop the narrative, stick with the story. We don't know if the narrative is going to be right, but if you're going to be right, you want to be right, man. Right? You drop the story and you didn't make the bet. That's silly, and that's what I did, and that's what I suggest that you don't do. So if you do like Indianapolis to take this one, Sutton's still definitely probably the top candidate to run it back. All right, in a second, we'll do some usage stats. Let's just get through the bottom. We'll make sure we do the value exercise, and then any extra time, we'll do a little bit of this usage stuff for the pass catchers. I think they're the most important players on the slate. Jerry Jeudy projected for 12 points at 7.8, the cost per point a bit higher than the rest of them. But with the IPO at 937, think about that. That is a little off. We may have to add another calculation here, the IPO kind of cost per point, because these things are not completely aligned. Jockmore has their own projection systems. Jeudy at 937, that cost feels yummy. We'll get to it in a bit. He's got the usage behind him. Pittman, I'm just worried about Patrick Surtain. That's been the thing. Devontae Adams did really have a nice game, but that battery, meaning Carr to Adams, is like 3 greater than signs. Ryan and Pittman. As much as I like Pittman, I don't like Ryan, and the Denver defense is really good. So there's a chance that if they blanket, bracket, and swallow up Pittman, Ryan's going to have to go somewhere else. I don't know where it's going to be. Paris Campbell out there running wind sprints. I think he finally ran routes as we were expecting Alex Pierce to do something. Although Pierce, hey man, I've been telling you, he's been my speculative wideout. Remember, it's very tough to find like rest of season impact guys in fantasy. Pierce, I think, has a chance. He's been taking a lot of these snaps out wide, and he's the deep threat. He's gone like over 60 or 70 yards a couple games in a row. It's not been on a ton of value, but it is there. If he finally supplants Campbell, the door would open for Pierce. I don't know where Campbell's 4 points comes from at 3.6 salary. That's $900 per point. No thanks. $4 IPO, 9% ownership. It's tantalizing, right? There is some stuff that makes you want to get into it, the low IPO, but it's not there. I'd rather go with Pierce, like I said. The projection up at near 6, salary 5.4. He's a must in the showdown. The cost per point, pretty high, but I wouldn't let it discourage me because I think the projection is very low, right? Especially in point per reception. I think he's a 3 or 4 reception guy, and if he's like a 40, 50, 60 yard guy, that total is low. And then I mentioned Eric Saubert. The reason you got to look at him is those tight end stats that I mentioned. Both of these teams have been susceptible to the tight end. They get movement up front. They win at the point of attack on the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback has to get out quick, right? So that's pretty much the premise of it. But Saubert, if that's the case, Indianapolis being susceptible, 4-point projection, 1.2 thousand salary, you can get with Lindsey super cheap and Saubert really cheap. If I had to pick one, it'd be Saubert because I think he's actually going to be a part of it. That's a pretty decent segue. We have a minute. Let's get into some utilization. If I could blow through it really quick, since I ended with the Broncos, let's finish right there. Saubert. Okay, got him right here. Yes, it's been limited, only 6 targets, but he has run 54 routes. When they've connected, it's been for yardage, 23 yards per reception. How are they going to work him in? I mean, he has 192 snaps, so he's seeing the field, and now that usage has been increased, there's a chance that, he's a guy, like I said, Albert O is pretty much essentially phased out. So I don't think Saubert's going to be the long-term answer because I think Dulcich is. But in this very short window, go and give me Saubert. For sure, I mentioned the Sutton usage just really through the roof. 28% of the team target share, 40% of the team air yards. So he's really the guy you want to get with. 2.3 yards per route run. After that, it's a bit messy. I mean, Judy does get some usage. Ran 106 routes. He has only 11 catches, though. 21 targets. They've had some trouble, but it has been 1.7 yards per route run, which is a bad 9 yards per target. Also not bad. 70% of the team target share, 23% of the team air yards. And when you're saying where else is it going? Well, Javonte Williams is getting 18% of the team target share. That's got to go somewhere. I think that'll get split up, and that's where I think Saubert, again, has a chance to get on that. He didn't have a player prop. That's probably what I've been looking for. We'll talk about that in just a second. Anything else of note here? Yeah, it was Pittman with the big usage, of course. 19% team target, 17% team air, but he plays 94% of the snaps, so of course he's the target leader. Big thing here, Nyheim Hines is the team target leader after that. 19 targets, 17 receptions. They're very efficient, 27% target per route run. So if Indianapolis ends up behind, of course there's no Taylor. If they're unsuccessful running the ball, you could see Hines getting some work in the backfield. That's where I think the value will be today. Boom! That's our second pillar of profit and the penny stock section of this show. Brought to you by Jock Market, that lovely fantasy app. Make sure you download that bad boy. And if you're new, don't be intimidated, right? We're walking you through it. I would suggest listen to this segment again. Download the app, get the promo, and maybe don't play live today, right? Follow along, get an idea of how it works, how to execute, and track it. I think that's probably your best piece of advice we can give here, is you don't have to feel pressed to chase. I'd much rather be involved in the main slate anyway. So learn it, learn the format, see the speed of the game, how much fun it is to do these bids, because the $100 that you get matched is more than enough to do damage. So, all right. Let's punch this ball in, right? We're in the goal. We got goal to go, and let's punch this bad boy in. Everyone just take a deep breath, and we're going to do just that, yo. All right, we are goal to go. Let's punch this bad boy in. We've done most of the handicapping for this one. You can see it up on the screen. The video people get first crack at it. Well, our week 5 Thursday night football prop is Mr. Nyheim Hines to go over 3.5 receptions. I saw that minus when I posted it yesterday. I made my graphic, it was minus 115, and it was minus 125 when I woke up. Now it's minus 130. So people are getting onto it. The second you see this, you're going to have to hit it. I hate really paying juice, but this one is probably the exception for all the reasons that I meant. I think Hines is pretty script independent on this one. Week 1 against Houston, 6 grabs for 50 yards. Week 2 against Jacksonville, 4 grabs for 37. KC, 5 grabs for 23. Week 4, 2 grabs. So he's only not cleared the reception bar once. And that was a disaster of a game script for them. I think coming into this, where they have had a week of trying to optimize his usage, I think Hines is a smash here. And this is what I want to get to. These really are just a first look for me. These bets are out very early, and again, markets are moving. There's still news to be had. And the full Monty, the full slate of props is not out. If you're unfamiliar to my work, you can follow me on Twitter at John Laghezza, Laghezza. That'll streamline you to the Patreon page, which is still free. Jump on. But aside from the betting model and all that really cool stuff that's worth it anyway, even though it's free, is not just the picks, but I like to walk through a kind of process, right? And that's what it's all about. What I'm getting at is this. I'd much rather play alt props because I don't think the pricing is correct. Meaning, if you could get at me, DM me, comment on YouTube, I get you a link, get you hooked up to where we have these things. With a 4 receptions, you see minus 35. It's like, ugh. When meanwhile you could get 8 and you don't get rewarded for that, I'd much rather find the sites with progressive alt-rec props and get a piece on 4 and a piece on 5 and a piece on 6. Take the same R, right? Again, just because I'm recommending more bets doesn't mean I'm recommending more risk. That is something my people know, right? The Cork Stats crew understands this very well. In fact, your best bet is to probably have a more robust betting slip with the very stringently managed risk input. And that will probably be your pathway to slow grinding success. That's what I used to do. As I found in my career, as I've tried to narrow my ticket, there have been points where you're going to do worse because you're relying on less outcomes to happen your way. Again, people think they predict the future. I don't. I just try and put myself in strong probabilistic scenarios. This is one of them, but the price is not advantageous, right? So again, if you're very limited or just a very recreational bettor and you're not too allergic to mild juice, take Nyheim Hines at over 3.5 receptions. You're going to get this one. But if you can build one of those ladder plays, I mean, listen, you heard it. It's not a stretch. We've had 4, 5, and 6 this year. And, he's no stranger to those games. Last year, it was limited, spotty at points, but we saw it pop as high as 6. The game I was referring to earlier on, you have to go back to 2020. Taylor was out. Nyheim Hines had 18 touches, like I said, 10 carries, 29 yards. They abandoned the run. Does that sound familiar? He had 8 grabs in that game for 66. So if Nyheim Hines pops off for 8 catches, right, and again, you can see this happening. Denver, very strong front 7, very creative in their packaging. They're going to be looking to stunt and confuse. They're also going to win individual battles. You can see that become a bail. Everyone bails on the quarterback, and it's quick dumps over the front 7, looking to get good players in space. The Colts don't have too many good players. Hines is the closest one to the quarterback with, dangerous men bearing down on you. So, that's really the thought process to it. With the opening to really get paid, why limit yourself here? And why tie yourself to that kind of juice when, let's say it's, you got $135, right? It's a perfect example. You're going to pay $135, maybe $13.50, right? Percentages, people. I'd rather just take fractions of that. I'd rather either avoid the 4, take half of it, put it on 5, a quarter of it, put it on 6, 10% put on 7, 5% put on 8. And if he has that big game, you crush that. And that's kind of what I'd rather get at than hit for, the unit on the guy that had the monster game with a proper cap. So I like to leave the back door open. I like to leave that back door open. Speaking of weird innuendos, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe and stick your cartoon finger up at me. The Lord knows there's plenty of room in there, right? Oh, doing a belly whop, which means we must be up against it, and that will do it for daily fantasy sports picks and bets and the mix, everybody. Is there a faster pace and more engaging show for football? I'm not so sure. I'm out there consuming content like a mop, right? Like I am the ShamWow of content, not just because I want to make sure that I'm bringing the best. I want to make sure that my game is sharp, but we want to make sure that we're helping. And for all the quantity of football content, I think a lot of it kind of falls short because there's a lot of box score reading without that application that we get to, right? If we're going to talk DFS, if you're going to talk Jock market and you're not talking IPO, you're not talking projection, and you're not talking ceiling limits, right? Where we pull the plug, where we've mentioned $12.50 on the showdown slate. For me, it's generally $9, $8.50 to $9 on the main slate, and then identifying those value plays, and again, which ones we use for conventional DFS as opposed to Jock market. So thank you so much for picking up what we're putting down here at the Mayo Media Net. I hope you enjoyed the show, maybe learned something. If you did, you get down there and press the like button because that stuff actually absolutely matters, like way more than how good the show is, so go figure. Here I am like begging for likes, right? But hopefully, it's just what it is. It is what it is. One hand washes the other. I've never been like ashamed, to be part of the community, right? I don't think I'm better than anybody. Again, I come from like 0. If you could come from negative, that's where I come from. So it really means a lot to me to help novices and beginners. I get off on that. Showing people how to stand up for themselves financially, right? How to stand up for yourself against the market, right? To have the confidence once you've done the work, believe in it, but then also execute properly, because I think that's more important than a smash play, empty the mortgage, you know, double it up. That's not what we do, right? But it also, like I said, does it mean that we don't open the avenue for exponential profit, right? That's with the progressive payouts. So, all right, hopefully you learned something, left a feather in a cap or two beyond today's show. Rate, review, and subscribe to the pod. Make sure you download Jock Market. Use the promo code MMN. I'm going to get to some writing. I have my Athletic Speculator article. I'm going to do the NFL line report. Again, hop on over to the Patreon page. It's free right now. But once we go live, hopefully I'm having some trouble with tech support, whatever. It would only be $2 a week anyway, just to keep the light on there, which I think is more, pretty understandable, even for kind of min bettors, right? Even if you're like a $10 bettor, $10 per game, $2 a week to get you in front of these lines, which we absolutely have. Again, Joe, check the receipts. Like everything else I do is fully transparent and out in the open, public source. Like that's just how it is, right? I wear my L's in my sleeve, and that's the answer to why people don't come at me with what? You're going to make fun of me? I make fun of myself. You want to tell me I lost? I'm the first person to tell you when I lose. By the time you're trying to criticize me for losing, I'm already digesting and trying to make those changes. So, boom, one last lesson on the way out the door. Woo! Enjoy the game. Enjoy your day, and when we're done with the book, enjoy that pay, everybody. Remember, when you work this hard, it feels a lot less like luck, man. I'll catch you on the flip side, yo. Peace.